Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Jasmine, and as you can see from the title, today is a very sensitive topic. So, a huge trigger warning right off the bat. Again, a huge trigger warning right off the bat. This entire video is going to be about the aftermath of essay for survivors. So please click away if you feel uncomfortable or triggered. Yeah, so just a small note is that I made this channel to put myself on the spot, to express myself better, and my videos before this have been completely unscripted. I was speaking right off the bat, but considering the sensitivity of today's video, I have my notes with me in the background. So just don't mind if I look like I'm reading something, because I am, because it's just a very sensitive topic, and I want to be very careful with the way I word things. Yeah, that's about it. So, I want to talk about something really personal today. And honestly, this is probably one of the hardest things I've ever tried putting into words, because I'm not speaking about this as an outsider. I'm speaking about this as somebody who's gone through it as well. And I think that's exactly why I wanted to make this video. Because people talk about essay like it's just one horrible moment, but nobody really prepares you for the aftermath. The way it follows you afterwards, the way it quickly changes your brain, your relationships, your body, your sense of safety, even the way you see yourself. And one of the hardest parts is how confusing your own reactions become afterwards. You start questioning yourself constantly. Why is this still affecting me? Why can't I just move on? Am I overreacting? Am I being dramatic? Am I attention seeking for talking about this? And even though I know it's not, even making this video feels to some extent a bit attention seeking to me, even though I know it really isn't, but part of me still does feel that way. And I know that a lot of survivors understand exactly what I mean by this too. Because somehow survivors end up feeling guilty for their own pain. Like, even speaking about what happened feels wrong sometimes. You will literally sit there suffering in silence because part of you feels like people are gonna think you just want sympathy or attention. Sometimes people make that feeling so much worse. Some people, they blame the victim directly, some do it subtly. The second a lot of people hear about essay, then they start questioning the survivor instead of the person who caused the harm. Not everyone, but a lot of times this is what goes down. Like, what were you wearing? Why were you there? Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you say something sooner? And what hurts is that survivors already ask themselves these questions 1,000 times in their own head. So, hearing it from other people just adds even more shame onto something that already feels impossible to carry. And then there are people who start acting very weirdly around survivors afterwards too, because you get a variety of reactions towards it. Don't get me wrong, in no way am I saying that they aren't supportive people or people who are genuinely there for you. I'm speaking um, about the negative aspects of it, because I mean, it is quite a traumatic thing to go through, but just some things that I feel people don't talk about enough, okay? So just keep that in mind. Some people become very awkward and uncomfortable, like they suddenly don't know how to look at you anymore. Some people start treating you like, you're fragile or damaged. Some people minimize what happened because they're uncomfortable facing the reality of the situation. Some people only support survivors when they react in ways that seem acceptable to them. But what they don't understand is that trauma is not neat or socially comfortable. Something that they truly do not understand. Because survivors have different ways of coping, different ways of dealing with the situation. Some survivors become quiet and withdrawn afterwards. Some become hyper independent because trusting people again starts to feel very, very unsafe. Some isolate themselves completely. Some struggle with physical touch. Some become emotionally numb. And listen to what I'm about to say very carefully, because I have not seen a lot of people speak about this. There's also one side amongst these that people judge the hardest. They judge it the hardest, which is hypersexuality after the trauma. And I really, really need people to stop treating that like it makes survivors dirty or invalid. Sometimes trauma completely distorts your relationships with intimacy, control, validation, affection, and even your own body. Sometimes your brain starts trying to, you know, regain control in very confusing ways, because what happened made you feel extremely powerless. Trauma responses are survival responses, they are not always logical. Survivors end up hating themselves no matter how they react. Like, if you avoid intimacy, you feel broken. If you become hypersexual, you feel ashamed. If you cry too much, you feel dramatic. If you act normal, you feel invalid. If you talk about it, you feel attention seeking. If you stay silent, you feel alone. It is extremely exhausting. Another thing I wish people would really understand is how deeply trauma affects your nervous system afterwards. What happens is your brain becomes hyper aware constantly. You notice tone shifts, body language, certain looks, certain situations. Sometimes your body reacts before your mind even understands why. And that hypervigilance is exhausting because it feels like your brain never fully relaxes anymore. Another thing that I wish more people would talk about a bit more is how you start grieving the version of yourself that existed before the trauma. The version of you that trusted easier, that felt lighter, didn't overthink every interaction, didn't feel uncomfortable being perceived, didn't constantly think about safety. And I still grieve that version of myself sometimes too. And healing from this is extremely non-linear. Like, I can go weeks or months feeling okay, and then suddenly something very random triggers me, like a smell, a sentence, a tone of voice, a location, a memory. and suddenly I feel like I'm back in that emotional state again. Survivors constantly blame themselves for not being over it yet. But it doesn't work that way. Trauma doesn't just disappear simply because time has passed. Your mind, your body, they remember things even when you desperately wish that they didn't. And this is again very important. I really hope and wish that survivors would provide themselves with compassion. I think that survivors need so much more compassion for themselves, because a lot of us are walking around secretly ashamed of the ways we adapted just to survive. Whether you become distant, whether you become hypersexual or emotionally numb, scared of closeness, overly attached to people, struggle with trusting people, whether you minimize your own trauma because part of you thinks that, other people had it worse. Your pain is real, it's still real. And I really need survivors to hear this from somebody who understands firsthand. Um, you are not weak because this affected you deeply. You are not dramatic for struggling. You are not attention seeking for wanting your pain to be acknowledged. You are not ruined because trauma changed parts of you. Something violating happened to you, so of course it's going to leave scars. But those scars, they don't make you disgusting, broken, or unworthy of love. And if you're somebody listening to this while silently carrying the same kind of pain, I just want you to know that you are not alone in the confusion of it. You are not crazy for reacting the way that you did. And you don't need to become the exact version of yourself that existed before the trauma in order to deserve, peace, healing, love, safety, or understanding. I hope that nobody watching this can relate to what I've talked about, but if you do, please know that you are not alone. Stop blaming yourself. I know it's easier said than done, but you don't need to invalidate your own feelings. You don't need to feel like you're attention seeking. It happened to you, it will leave scars, but it doesn't define who you are. So please keep that in mind. People react to things differently, people react to traumas differently, people have their own ways of coping, people have their own pace of healing. Each person is not the same. And when people expect you to react in certain ways, and when you don't react in the way that they want you to, then they feel uncomfortable with it. And it is unfortunately how it is a lot of times. Because when you're burdening yourself with so much, you have so much already going on within you, you're constantly blaming your own self, you're thinking of 1,000 different timelines where you could have done something different. But ultimately, it's not your fault. No matter what anybody else says, no matter what you tell yourself, it wasn't your fault. You don't have to keep thinking about what you could have done differently, because it wasn't your fault to begin with. And my heart is with you guys, and stay strong. You're not alone. Yeah, it was a pretty heavy video, but an important one, and I feel a little bit lighter putting it out there too. And part of me still thinks this is a bit attention seeking, but I also know that it isn't. So inner voices are battling against each other. But yes, stay safe. You're not alone. And your YouTube elder sister signing out.